We've finally reached the iconic movie in Arnold's filmography where he must protect someone instrumental to the future of mankind against an unrelenting, invincible opposing force that ends with Arnold sacrificing himself to protect the future. It's time to talk. It's not Terminator, but it is Judgment Day for End of Days. Hello friends and welcome back to Every Arnold Movie Ever, episode 26. And today I'm covering 1999's Y2K panic horror film, End of Days. Also known as the movie where Arnold farted on Professor Sprout's head.
He was actually quite rude. He farted in my face. He did it deliberately right in my face.
Coming off 1997's disastrous Batman and Robin and a surprise heart surgery, Arnold's status as the biggest movie star in the world was suddenly in question. His health became a concern for producers, and all his previous projects were put on pause. It took him nearly 2 years to find his next project, and this would be a crucial one. It was a bit of a re-entry for him at a time at the turn of the century when everything was starting to change in film. The Arnold action formula wasn't the most popular genre at the time, and movies with darker themes and heavy cynicism were all the rage. One genre in particular was seeing a resurgence, revolving around religion and Satan. 2 years prior, we got The Devil's Advocate, which saw Al Pacino make an absolute buffet out of playing the devil. And then in 1999 alone, we also got The Ninth Gate and Stigmata, and there were a lot of other movies like this around that time. The devil was hot, and Arnold was searching for a way to stay on top of his game. So he latched onto a script that had been floating around titled End of Days. The script follows Jericho Cane. Yes, Jericho Cane. How is that not a Jason Statham character? It either clunkily pulls from biblical text, or, while writing the script, screenwriter Andrew Marlowe happened to be watching Monday Night Raw. Jericho gets embroiled in a plot involving the devil, who once every millennia is thrown a bone and comes to Earth to try and impregnate a specific woman during a very specific hour, and if he succeeds, the Antichrist is born and the world ends. Who agreed on these rules? Was God like, alright, fine, listen, devil, I'm benevolent-ish. Forget all that Old Testament stuff. I'll give you a chance to destroy everything I've created. Every 1,000 years, we'll say. You can try to come down to Earth, knock someone up, and surely someone out there is going to stop you. Not me. Look, I'm not going to do shit. But I have so much faith in humanity, they can figure it out. The lead role of Jericho Cane was originally written for Tom Cruise, but Cruise was lured away by Paul Thomas Anderson to work on Magnolia. Wise choice, Tom. Arnold was cast in 1998 and pulled in his usual $25 million salary despite the health concerns, and the role was rewritten for him. I read a script from early 98 before Arnold came on, and it does seem geared more towards a Tom Cruise or a Brad Pitt type. It's also missing all of Arnold's one-liners in the movie, but does have one I can't believe didn't make the final cut. Time to give the devil his due. And the search for a director also went through several options, including Sam Raimi and Guillermo del Toro, who both turned it down. Music video director turned movie franchise remaker Marcus Nispel was hired and got them close to a start date before backing out due to creative differences. But hold on, that's just the official line. It could have also had something to do with the fact that Variety unearthed a 64-page manifesto detailing Nispel's demands for his shoots. These included, for a big star, a pretty PA of their preferred sex should always be there to keep tabs on talent. Marcus doesn't do client dinners. Explain that he has a superstition. When scheduling, make sure to leave 8 hours sleep time for Marcus. Talent should be kept in visible distance from Marcus. They should be asked to remain quiet and not talk to Marcus unless he needs to talk to them. A PA should be responsible for getting Marcus a vegetarian poo-poo platter for lunch and a Diet Coke to drink. Nispel left the project soon after the article was published, and it looked like things were going to fall apart until the man responsible for that other Arnold movie about a protector of the future, James Cameron, stepped in to save the day. He called up director Peter Hyams, and according to Hyams, forced him to do it. James Cameron was kind of the godfather of me doing that film because of his relationship with Schwarzenegger. He told me I was doing it. This was the first picture Arnold had made for a couple of years, so this was Arnold coming back, and he wanted to try to make something good and to take some chances. Peter Hyams had been directing films since 1974, his first being Busting, which Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avary just covered in their excellent podcast Video Archives, something I listen to in 15-minute increments before I fall asleep, so it takes me 3 weeks to get through an episode. Hyams has an interesting journeyman career, though, having served as DP and directed 2010, Running Scared, Time Cop, motherfucking Sudden Death, which seems to come up often here. I think I need to review that. The Relic, and some legitimate garbage like 2005's A Sound of Thunder. And here he directs End of Days, which ends up being his highest grossing movie of all time. Because of Arnold's health concerns, there were insurance agents on set the first week, but once they saw Arnold could easily perform all the stunts, they backed away and the shoot continued without issue. Without issue-ish. There were some things that we'll get to a little bit later. For the effects in the back half of the movie, they hired Stan the Man Winston to create the devil. He made this giant 12-foot puppet, which barely ends up on screen because they had some extra time in the editing bay and they were like, this looks too good. We need to drop in some shoddy late 90s CG. End of Days is the last movie of Arnold's most successful decade. Is it a victory lap after an incredible run, or does its title hold metaphorical significance to his career? Let's find out. End of Days opens by inspiring Into the Unknown from Frozen 2. Or maybe you've heard it in White Lotus. It's actually a Gregorian chant called Dies Irae, or Day of Wrath, traditionally used in funerals, but you can hear it in pretty much every movie score ever, as compiled here by music history professor Alex Ludwig. The casting was done by Jackie Birch, a name we know from a bunch of other Arnold movies. And then we open in 1979 with a cabal of priests and the Pope talking about how Satan's mother will be born this day.
If she lives to bring about the end of days, there will be no redemption.
Cut to a hospital in New York, and this friendly old nurse takes this freshly born baby to Udo Kier, who performs some routine newborn baby stuff, like feeding it some snake blood. I'm sorry, you're telling me this movie wasn't a huge hit? Then we skip ahead to December 28th, 1999, where the Predator emerges from New York sewers. It possesses Gabriel Byrne's body, a nice, handsome choice, and immediately does what you'd expect the devil to do. Sexually assaults a woman and then blows her up. Then we meet Jericho Cane, who's starting his morning off by shooting himself, but obligatory comic relief. Kevin Pollak interrupts, and since he can't eat bullets, Cane opts for a delicious breakfast smoothie. Another thing that only exists in a movie. Look at this.
People that didn't like being...
I know this is a movie about Satan coming to Earth and causing mayhem, but this is so unrealistic. Nobody does this. But I give it a pass because it does lead to our first one-liner from Arnold.
Say breakfast is the most important meal of the day.
Now, Jericho is a former cop turned private security, and apparently there's some sort of hit out on Gabriel Byrne's character, and Jericho was hired to protect him.
Get in the car!
He gets shot in the process. He actually saves Gabriel Byrne and Satan, unbeknownst to him.
Tell me you remembered, come on!
Then they chase the shooter, giving us a pretty decent traditional Arnold action sequence, which I totally forgot existed in this movie. It leads them into the subway, where we learn that the man trying to kill Gabriel Byrne is a priest from the beginning of the movie.
The Dark Angel is loose from his prison!
Get down on the ground!
He's trying to kill the devil, and then a detective played by CCH Pounder, she accuses Cane of drinking because...
You said here the guy spoke to you.
Yeah, so what?
The guy doesn't have a tongue.
Jericho and Kevin Pollak, who I may have a name in this movie, but I'm not quite sure yet, they go to the priest's apartment and accidentally stumble upon the set of Seven. We're given our first unearned jump scare to remind us that this is a horror movie. And if you still weren't sure that this was a horror movie, Arnold utters one of my favorite horror movie cliche lines.
Doesn't make any sense.
There it is. I love any movie where the character says, "This doesn't make any sense." It pops up actually more often than you know.
Doesn't make any sense, Rachel.
It doesn't make any sense, sir.
This doesn't make sense.
There are literally thousands more examples, but that's a supercut for another day. We then meet Christine York, who makes the classic subway mistake of making eye contact with a stranger.
He's coming for you. He's coming for you, Christine. He's gonna fuck you.
Awkward. Luckily, she's saved by uncooked CG, and we learn that Christine sees and hears things that aren't there. Speaking of things that aren't there, we find out Jericho had a wife and child who died, giving him an Achilles heel that makes him a terrible candidate to face the devil. Nice acting here, though. We also learn that Christine's parents died, and she's being monitored by all the Satan cult members that gave the baby a snake blood bath earlier. And if it wasn't clear yet, she is the snake blood bath baby. Jericho's investigation takes him to a church where a gaggle of priests are just kind of weirdly congregating. Enter Rod Steiger, who suggests that Jericho is a drunken mess.
Listen, you've been drinking. I've got 14 years sober, and I can spot that.
And I gotta say, this is the most well put together functioning alcoholic I have ever seen. Another good line from Arnold here.
Do you believe in God?
Maybe once.
What happened?
We had a difference of opinion.
And then Steiger stonewalls Jericho and leaves through this door, but no more than 2 seconds later, Jericho just follows him unnoticed, where he stumbles upon some stigmata shit going down in the basement. Churches don't have locks? What's going on here? I love Rod Steiger's character because he only exists to yell trailer lines.
You think you've seen everything? You haven't. There are things you never dreamed of. There's another world out there. There are forces here at work you couldn't possibly comprehend. If you don't believe in God, how can you understand his adversary?
Meanwhile, the devil is hitting up all the tourist spots in New York City. Hey, End of Days is a Christmas movie. Now, Satan does a little fun scavenger hunt, and he finds Udo Kier. He thanks him for all his hard work over the years by, you know,
Daddy, who is it?
doing what the devil does. Udo doesn't seem to mind, though. Are we sure this movie wasn't a huge hit? After the menage a trois that turned into a menage a two, Satan runs into a fan on the street, but he turns out to be a phony. He doesn't even recognize Satan.
I like the shirt. Screw you, man.
So Satan teaches him a lesson.
Hey, kid.
And it's actually a scene the movie could use more of, Satan having a goof at the expense of innocent people. Gabriel Byrne doesn't really get to let loose and have fun in the way Pacino did. Like, he's so involved in his mission to end the world that he doesn't spend a lot of time messing around with people. We get our second jump scare when Jericho visits the tongueless priest.
Christ in New York.
Then Jericho does some hilarious connect-the-dots detective work by cracking the code the priest left.
The girl. I got to talk to her, find out what she knows.
Wait, we don't have a name.
Or maybe we do. Maybe it's not Christ in New York. Maybe it's Chris in New York. Christine in New York. Christine York.
That is some great shortcut plotting where they're like, how are we going to get from this clue to the woman? And instead of like working it out on a board or something, just have them walk and talk it out. And we get some gratuitous nudity here that I was not expecting here in 2023. It serves some sort of functional purpose because she's heading to the bathroom and she finds a dead body there. Is it a vision? Not this time. She's being chased by murder priests, and once again, Jericho and Pollock just happen to be in the right place at the exact right time. Now, the murder priests fail, but there is something interesting to a couple different sides of the church having justification for their actions. There are priests who think they have to kill Christine to prevent the apocalypse. And they aren't wrong. The other priests are trying to save her because that's their job as priests, is to, like, respect human life. They aren't wrong either. And then I guess Satan wanting to end the world is wrong, but he's Satan, so it would be more wrong if he didn't want to end the world. I kind of wish the movie would explore that a little bit more, but it devolves into, well, we'll see. Now we meet back up with Udo Kuck, who's trying to convince evil stepmother to bring Christine to the devil, but she's afraid she'll be tracked.
They'll follow me and find the temple.
Udo delivers the news to Satan, who has a, slight overreaction. And this is after Udo let him have a melty threesome with his wife and daughter and lit all those candles for him.
Bad. That guy is a jerk.
And we get some jokes from Kevin Pollock.
I bet you're not a date tonight. Not just the inflatable kind, a real live girl.
You break up with the inflatable one?
Yeah, she was just too needy.
And even Jericho is like, Jim Belushi, Robert Pastorelli, Tom Arnold, now Kevin Pollock. Yeah, this is a tired dynamic. He leaves and uncovers some sort of clue and shares it with Christine.
Now, this amulet is from a Masonic order and a former sub-herald of the Vatican Knights.
We get another unearned jump scare.
What does that have to do with me.
And I'm starting to think this movie only has one trick: incredibly loud music sting accompanied by a surprise image. I mean, the biggest cliche of a jump scare is that, oh my gosh, it's something, it turned out to be a cat. And they literally do that in this movie.
All right, I knew that was gonna happen.
Christine reveals that she sees things, but Jericho saw it too. And Satan seems to agree with Jericho's sentiments about Kevin Pollak because he shows up, pisses gasoline, and blows him up. Arnold fights Professor Sprout from Harry Potter in a scene they probably thought was hilarious at the time, Arnold versus an elderly lady, but now all I can think about is Arnold tooting on her head.
He was killing me, so he had me in a position where I couldn't escape, and he just farted.
He lets her live here, but Satan finishes the job on old farty face, and so now it's a race to keep Christine safe, so Jericho takes her back to the church. And since all the pieces are finally in place, we now get to hear the name of the movie in the movie, another thing I love.
The end of days.
End of days.
End of days.
The end of days.
End of days.
This is also the point where the movie almost breaks when Rod Steiger explains the logistics of Satan's opportunity.
The Gregorian monks studied the heavens, were able to calculate the precise moment of this event. They created our calendar by mapping this event. It all has to happen in that unholy hour before midnight on New Year's Eve.
It's complete, utter nonsense. And just as we're thinking that it's nonsense,
The Prince of Darkness wants to conquer the earth, but he has to wait until an hour before midnight of New Year's Eve. Is this Eastern time?
but it does bring up something interesting. Does a one-liner pointing out that a plot hole is ridiculous help paper over that plot hole? Or does acknowledging how stupid it is just make it more glaring for the audience? It feels like they realized it was a problem a little too late in the process, and they just said like, Arnold, just make a joke about it and it'll be fine.
Satan's greatest trick was convincing man he didn't exist.
Oh cool, a line that was used almost word for word in The Usual Suspects.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
Gabriel Byrne could have told them that. Oh shit, Kevin Pollak could have told him that too. Jericho is back at his apartment and we finally see him almost drink. This guy is the worst alcoholic ever. He gets interrupted by Satan, who tempts Jericho with the family he lost.
Amy?
Don't stay in there too long, you'll turn into a prude.
I can give it all back to you. Everything that he took away.
Satan reminds Jericho that his old buddy Sven Ole Thorson killed his wife and child due to Jericho's job. And this scene is exactly what the movie needed more of. Not just conversations between Satan and the main character, but also a reminder of why Jericho is the way he is. Arnold gets some pretty good acting here.
No!
And another great line delivery.
You want to fuck with me? You're a fucking choir boy compared to me! A choir boy!
I'm telling you, coming into this movie, I was like, I haven't seen this in a while. I don't know if this is like up there with Arnold's one-liners, but there are some low-key great lines in this movie.
Stop being such a pussy!
Now, Satan starts making some great points because that's his strong suit.
And where was God? He could have stopped it, but he didn't. He fucked you. And then he made you feel guilty.
Go to hell.
But he ends up getting outsmarted by Jericho with the oldest trick in the book.
All you gotta do is take my hand, and I'll give you back everything that he took away.
Okay. Fuck you!
Apparently that book is not the Bible. And just when it seems Jericho will never get rid of Satan...
Hey!
Great. Comic relief is back. Jericho doesn't trust Kevin Pollak, so he shoots him just to be sure.
You're bleeding.
Of course I'm bleeding! You fucking shot me!
And I don't know why that would explain it, but apparently that's enough because he immediately reveals Christine's location.
St. John's Church.
Christine hangs out in the least safe church ever, and here come the murder priests to murder her.
May God forgive us!
And shortly thereafter, Satan arrives to do some murdering of his own. And Jericho is betrayed by Kevin Pollak. Shocker, I did not see that coming. And Satan steals away with Christine. Then, Jericho gets crucified, which serves no narrative purpose other than to give us this image of Arnold as a Christ figure on a cross. He's fine. The next day, he's still up on the cross, but Rod Steiger's like, oh, what are you doing up there? I should probably bring you down. I guess in some way it's supposed to set up his resurrection. But man, I don't know. Waste of a crucifixion if you ask me. Now, the Pope is informed that Satan has the girl, and the Pope is all like, shit. Welp, I don't know. Have faith or something. Amen. Now, because of these asinine rules, Satan has a full day with Christine before he can impregnate her, so he takes her out on a nice date. I'm assuming. They actually don't show that part, but I'd totally watch that movie. And for all the good one-liners Jericho has, we get this weird one from him.
You to get hit by a truck?
No, the truck missed me.
And I'm having trouble tracking it. Like, the truck missed him. Okay, so if it missed him, why does he look like that? Is there some connective thing I don't understand there? Am I just dumb? Like, it made me feel dumb. It seems like he should have said,
You to get hit by a truck?
Yep, you should see the truck. Jericho heads off for his final showdown with Satan, and we get another unearned jump scare. The devil's ready to put his plan into action by getting some action, but Jericho confronts the situation the only way he knows how. Then we get a second big reveal of Kevin Pollak as the villain. Oh no!
You'd be amazed what you agree to when you're on fire.
But the more shocking reveal is that he has a first name.
Don't do it, Bobby.
I don't know why they set it up like this. We already know Kevin Pollak is in cahoots with Satan. Why make this such a big thing where it's like, and look at who I have? It's like, yeah, the guy who already betrayed me. Who else you got back there? Anybody, like, is my wife and child back there? That would be better. But in the last moment, our good friend Bobby defies Satan. Jericho and Christine escape to a subway car, and Christine, realizing the movie is almost over, demands literally one moment of agency.
I want to do something. Let me help.
Put it in. Note, only pull the trigger when you're ready to...
Before she goes right back to damseling. Satan catches the train, and Jericho just does more shooting, even though he knows he's facing an unkillable entity. Can't solve this one with bullets, bud. Oh, wait, hold on. They do something. I don't understand. The train explodes, and it looks great because this was accomplished through the use of detailed miniatures. And the blown apart Gabriel Byrne also looks really good too. Practical effects. But the rules for Satan inhabiting a human body, they don't really make any sense. Like, is he invincible? Is he not? What can he do? He has superpowers, but then eventually he can get blown up. Anyway, it turns out, I guess at some point, his body just can't hold up because the devil turns back into the predator, and Jericho and Christine escape too. Oh look, they're in another church. For a movie with a budget of $100+ million, they spend the majority of the time in churches and subways. Very odd. I guess when you're paying Arnold $25 million, you don't have enough money for anything else. This leads to the final showdown, but first, Jericho has a literal come to Jesus moment.
Please, God, help me.
And realizes what we've known for about an hour. Guns ain't it. Now here comes Satan, and if you squint, you can see Stan Winston's practical effects, but they're hidden beneath sheets of uncooked CG. For the film's final twist, Satan inhabits Jericho as a last-ditch effort to accomplish his mission, and it's a cool moment that allows Arnold to emote and like kind of have a little bit of fun.
What's wrong?
Nothing is wrong. You died for nothing. Just bought them time.
Please, you have to fight him.
But also makes me wonder what this movie would have been like if he and Gabriel Byrne switched roles. Jericho ends up sacrificing himself to save the world.
Run.
But I am completely taken out of the moment, again, by the CG. Why does he jump and float so high? Those wonky physics from Batman and Robin Last Action Hero are back! He gets an ending fit for Maximus. A year before Maximus, by the way, then he dies. The first time Arnold dies on screen playing a human, unless you count his deepfake death in The Running Man. Now, there was an original ending where Jericho gets resurrected and waltzes out of the church with Christine, but test audiences hated it and demanded Jericho die, bloodthirsty bastards. And that's the end of End of Days. Reviews for End of Days were some of the worst of his career. 11% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's a percentage point lower than Batman and Robin. Ebert and Joel Siegel, who was filling in for the late Siskel, recognized the movie as a silly lark.
End of Days has enough fireballs, stunts, and special effects to entertain people who go in for that sort of thing, but the story is a traffic jam of half-baked theology, and the characters, frankly, seem as bewildered as we are.
I agree. It's goofy, it's silly, it's million-dollar effects and 20-cent theology.
Actually, I like a lot of his films, but not this one.
As usual, Arnold went all out to promote this, even showing up on my old alma mater, SmackDown, sporting his End of Days beard in a memorable moment where he attacked Triple H. It was so memorable, it earned him a spot in the WWE Hall of Fame, because that's really the only time Arnold was on WWE TV. End of Days opened on November 26th, 1999 with $20.5 million, not even making back Arnold's salary, and only good enough for number 3 on Thanksgiving weekend behind Toy Story 2 and The World Is Not Enough. Seems like a miscalculation to not release it around Halloween, but they were hoping to get it closer to the end of the year for Y2K. It held at number 3 for 2 weeks, and by the third week it dropped to number 5, losing out to new releases The Green Mile and, grimly, Deuce Bigalow, Male Gigolo. After that, it was toast, only making $66 million domestic, couldn't even do 66.6, but pulling together 212 total. So much like Batman and Robin, it did okay, but to justify his salary, Arnold needed better than okay every single time. In the aftermath, Arnold laid the blame on Hyams.
He did not have the potential, I think visually and intellectually, to really do something with that movie. But he was recommended by James Cameron, so we thought, well, he must know.
That's a fairly reserved answer, but luckily, he did an interview with Ain't It Cool News many years later where he revealed his true feelings.
With Hyams, I was getting in the alley, and I was getting beaten up by all those guys, and I said to him, it would be interesting to have some handheld camera work under there and have that kind of point of view. And he said, that's crap stuff. I say, are you saying that Jim Cameron does crap stuff? He uses the handheld a lot. He says, he overlights all his sets, and I don't like the way his things look. I said to myself, what a moron. Whenever I saw the playback, I couldn't see anything. It was so dark. I said, why don't you fucking light it up? And he said, you're used to Cameron's lighting. It's overlit. It's terrible.
In order to understand my feelings on End of Days, you need to look no further than the Guns N' Roses song that appears on its soundtrack. This was their first new song in 5 years. It's incredibly overproduced, and apparently the version that made the movie was from an unfinished demo. It's Guns N' Roses trying to capture the sound of the moment rather than doing what they do best, and it feels instantly dated. All of that could also apply to End of Days. This is Arnold's return to the screen after a 2-year hiatus due to the heart surgery and trouble getting insured for his next movie. It's trying to capture the zeitgeist by using Y2K as a backdrop. But when you make a movie centered around the turn of the year 2000 and you release it on November 24th, 1999, it has a shelf life of 37 days before it's a relic of the past. By the time it hits video, everyone already knows Y2K was nothing. Throwing a past their prime Guns N' Roses single on there and trying to recreate the magic of T2 doesn't help matters, it just makes for a good metaphor. But despite all that, and despite my better judgment, I've always liked End of Days. And I don't think it deserves 11% on Rotten Tomatoes. I like seeing Arnold try something different here, even if it isn't totally successful. Rewatching this, like I said, he had way more one-liners that landed than I remember, and he acquits himself well in the emotional scenes. I love the scene between Arnold and Gabriel Byrne in his apartment. I wish the movie had more of that stuff. Interesting conversations between people and the devil. I would have wanted to see Satan negotiating with Kevin Pollak while he was on fire, rather than try and make that some sort of big plot twist. But my biggest issue with the movie is the way the script handles Jericho's character. His loss of faith is written in broad strokes. Hey, give him a wife, give him a daughter, they were tragically killed, show him half-heartedly trying to commit suicide. What else do we need for a depressed person? Oh, right, he's got to be a drunk, but let's just have everyone talk about him being a drunk. We don't actually have to show. You know that old saying, tell, don't show. It's a character redemption starter pack. It's just enough to make you understand the devil's offer to him late in the movie, but not enough for you to buy into it emotionally. It's perfunctory. We don't know anything about his wife or child or their relationship, and even though we do see him almost shoot himself, there's still a disconnect. The story itself has potential, but it rushes through its introductions of Jericho and Christine and has a ton of heavy lifting to do to set up the chessboard with a bunch of religious mumbo-jumbo and prophecies and splinters of the church with the same goal but different methods for achieving it, and it all feels like half-baked. All of those are kind of interesting ideas, but they usually just take a backseat to gunplay. And yet, here I am, my irrational love of Arnold overriding all of that, to say, I like End of Days. I like it. Sorry. All right, let's get to the stats. Acting chops, 5. Not enough for him to sink his teeth into, but Arnold does what he can with what he's given. Kill count, a ridiculous 76 for a total of 576. Catchphrase, I chose this one because it defines the entire movie and represents how silly all of it is. Is that Eastern time? And here are the every Arnold movie ever rankings. You've got your cameos, T2-3D. Number 24, Hercules in New York. Number 23, The Villain. Number 22, Red Sonja. 21, Stay Hungry. 20, Batman and Robin. 19, Red Heat. 18, Raw Deal. 17, Junior. 16, End of Days. And the top 15 remains unchanged, and probably will for the unforeseeable future. Next up, Arnold's post-surgery skid continues with a dual role that I suspect he only took so he could deliver one line of dialogue, which I will reveal in the next video, in the sci-fi cloning oddity, The Sixth Day. See you then.